America doesn't really have enemies. America has examples it can't allow to succeed. And nothing worries Washington more than a country that controls valuable resources, has elections, and still says, we'll decide for ourselves. Welcome to Venezuela, the country the US can't ignore, can't control, and absolutely cannot let prove that independence works. Let's clear something up right away. The US-Venezuela conflict is not about Maduro's personality, socialism, democracy, or drugs. Those are the press releases. They're the words you use, so people don't ask follow-up questions. This is about precedent. Venezuela committed the ultimate geopolitical sin. It said, actually, we'd like to control our own oil. And Washington heard, if they get away with that, other countries might start getting ideas. Bad ideas, dangerous ideas, like sovereignty. So this isn't ideology, nor left versus right. It's example control. Because nothing scares a superpower more than one country proving you can say no and still survive. Here's the part everyone forgets. Venezuela didn't start anti-American. Hugo Chavez did not campaign saying, down with the United States. He said, maybe oil money should help Venezuelans. Washington responded with sanctions, isolation, pressure, regime change flirtation, and then acted shocked when Venezuela stopped trusting the US. That's like breaking up with someone on Instagram Live. And being furious, they blocked your number. Now, to be fair, the US doesn't do coups anymore. It does maximum pressure, targeted sanctions, recognizing alternative presidents, which is definitely not regime change. It just looks, smells, and feels exactly like it. And when Juan Guaido didn't magically become president, Washington shrugged and said, guess democracy didn't work. No, obedience didn't. Washington loves sanctions. They're sold as pressure on elites. What they actually enforce is simple: economic collapse. Then Washington looks at the border and asks, why are Venezuelans coming here? Sir, you enforce this. That's not a mystery. That's policy meeting gravity. Now, here comes China. And let's get one thing straight. China didn't show up with a sermon. It showed up with contracts, ports, railways, oil for loans deals, refineries, infrastructure the US stopped financing years ago. So let's ask the real question. Did China coerce Venezuela into these deals? No. China is transactional, mutually transactional. You sign only if it benefits you. China signs only if it benefits China. No forced ideology. No loyalty oaths. No demands to redesign your politics to qualify. Both sides keep autonomy. Either side can walk away. China doesn't play savior, and it doesn't take losses for applause. That's the deal. And compared to decades of US pressure dressed up as partnership, a deal that says, decide for yourself, feels almost radical. Not moral. Not benevolent. Just disciplined. And to countries used to punishment for independence, discipline feels like respect. Russia shows up later. Russia doesn't bring development. Russia brings weapons, military advisors, strategic aircraft flybys, UN vetoes. Russia's message is very clear. Touch them, and we're watching. China stabilizes economies. Russia raises the cost of intervention. China builds the house. Russia stands at the door holding a bat. Here's the twist. Washington is louder about Russia, but more afraid of China. Why? Because Russia disrupts, China replaces. Russia annoys America. China quietly starts sitting in America's seat and ordering the same drinks. Every country in Latin America is watching Venezuela. Not because they love Maduro, but because they see the rule. Vote left, you get punished. Assert autonomy, you get isolated. So even governments that dislike Venezuela still reject US interference. Because today, it's Venezuela. Tomorrow, it could be them. US pressure creates instability. Instability creates migration. Migration becomes a US political crisis. Then, Washington demands cooperation from the same region it destabilized. That's not strategy. That's a sanctions boomerang, and it keeps coming back harder. Here's the truth. The US doesn't fear Venezuela failing. It fears Venezuela surviving. Because if Venezuela survives while controlling its oil, trading with China, protected by Russia, ignoring Washington. Then other countries ask, wait, are we allowed to do that? And that question terrifies Washington. So, China makes deals. Russia raises costs. America applies pressure. And somehow, America keeps wondering why Latin America is quietly moving on. Maybe stop punishing countries for making their own choices. Or don't. That's been the policy for decades. And history suggests you won't. Thank you for tuning in to Global Storm Room. If this episode made you uncomfortable, good. Comfort is usually what power sells when it runs out of answers. See you next time.